G'day, in this video I'm showing you step by step just how easy it is to install an Adventure King's 25 amp DCDC charger onto a 12 volt control box. There's only two main wires you need to actually reconnect, and you can retain these two quick connect plugs for a super neat and tidy and easy install. You can do this with either the 25 amp or 40 amp DC-DC charger, although if you're using the 40 amp you might have to open up this hole and this grommet here with a step drill, and then I like to use one of these outside grommets from the 12 volt control box because they're a bit bigger and you'll fit all that wiring through much easier. Other than that, you'll need some basic hand tools, a couple of drill bits, I've got a drill over there, some connectors, nuts, bolts and washers, a couple of cable ties to neaten things up, and I've got a 50 amp wiring kit to show you how this would actually connect up in your vehicle. Plus you'll need an extra fuse. You can use a second 50 amp wiring kit and cut it to length for an easier option, but we'll get to that towards the end. The first step is mounting the DC-DC charger. To do this, first we'll mark out the holes, then open the lid of the 12 volt control box to make sure that when we drill those holes, we're not going to hit any of the internal wiring. And a handy little tip, I like to use the inside packaging of the DC-DC charger to mount the top of the control box on, so when I'm drilling, everything's protected. So I've drilled those 4 holes and I've confirmed that the DC-DC charger will fit on there, so it's ready to mount down. But before I do that, I want to feed these wires into this grommet, and in order to do that, I'll need to remove these quick connect plugs. So it's pretty easy. I use a small little Allen key. I just push that locking tab down and then pull the wire out from the back. I'm just putting a cable tie on each of the pairs of wires so I don't mix them up. I'm actually just putting the cable tie on backwards so you can easily loosen it off, but it holds them together temporarily. Once I've poked them all through, I'll just re-identify each pair of wires and move my cable tie temporarily to the inside. The DC-DC charger is now securely and neatly mounted, and I've run all the wiring through that grommet. So step 2 is actually to start connecting the wiring. I'm going to start with the solar wiring first, which is the green and black pair. I'm actually going to retain this same position for the quick connect plug, and I'll show you why. Once you turn this around, you'll notice that there are connectors on these wires, so we can easily disconnect this particular quick connect plug, remove it, run our new wires through those grommets, and then connect it back up. Now I can reconnect this plug and bolt it back down. How good does that look? We've got that existing quick connect plug with the new black and green wiring pair, so the solar is ready to go. The next wiring we're going to do is the red and black pair, which should go to your auxiliary battery. So of course you could use the quick connect plug and run a quick connect plug to your battery. However, we're going to take advantage of the terminals inside the 12 volt control box and wire it up as per the manual for that, which means we're powering the box and connecting the DC-DC charger, which means we're going to have to add a couple of ring terminals. We've added the M10 terminals to the red and black wires, so they will mount up to these 2 terminal posts. Now I'm quickly going to give you a demo of how you'd then connect this to your auxiliary battery. So if you were using a 50 amp wiring kit, you'd obviously have to cut this to length. You would use the existing ring terminals to go to your second battery. You've got the fuse and fuse holder there. Then you'd cut this at the required length and actually add 2 more terminals to then mount up to the same terminal posts in here. So you've got power coming from the DC-DC charger to these terminals and then to the second battery. Now if you wanted to make your own wiring from the box to your battery, again, you're going to need to put 2 M10 terminals on this end, run your wiring down, add a fuse as close as possible to the positive. These are a 17mm nut. We'll remove those, add both positives and both negatives to the same terminals like this, and then we can work on the next set of wires. And always remember, if you are hooking this up in your vehicle, to disconnect the power or remove all the fuses before you start connecting everything up. At this point, you can tighten the positive and negative back up. With our auxiliary battery connected and the red and black pair from the DC-DC charger connected, we've got 4 more wires to go. Our starter battery wires, our temperature sensor, which we can actually run out to our second battery and goes to the negative terminal as well, so we can leave that for the moment. And we've also got the ignition wire, which is required for a smart alternator, and it's a great option for any vehicle because it will make your charging better. So that will run back towards your starter battery as well, and we're going to feed all of those out of here. I've obviously removed these grommets just to make it easy to see, but if you're doing this in a vehicle, you'd leave these in, pierce them, feed the wires through, and it makes sure that your wiring's protected. Now we can reconnect our quick connect plug that we took off in the first place because we're using a 50 amp wiring kit, which makes it plug and play. And finally, I'll extend that blue wire by joining on a new length and connect it to a positive 12 volt source that only has power when the vehicle is on. I typically find something in the fuse box and use a piggyback fuse for this, so it's a permanent install. With the lid bolted down, everything internally is done. So, just as a reminder, we've got our auxiliary or second battery over here. It's been fused, and we've got that temperature sensor ready to connect to the negative terminal of the battery. If we come around this way, the last thing to do is actually connect our starter battery. It's the yellow and black paired wires, and it does have that quick connect plug. So of course, using a King's 50 amp wiring kit, all you have to do is plug that in. Now this would be connected to your starter battery. It's already fused, ready to go. And of course, we've got our blue wire for the ignition wire. While you're actually routing the 50 amp wiring kit, it's a good idea to run the blue wire for your ignition wiring at the same time, so it follows the same path and you can reach that under bonnet fuse box. Of course, that depends on your vehicle and which 12 volt source you're using. Well, that's how easy it is to install a King's DCDC charger onto the 12 volt control box.